All right, YouTube. Last night, only about an hour after I reported that Lufthansa had abandoned the Venezuelans, they said it was because the government wasn't like giving them proper funding or something like that. I think it has more to do with like civil unrest slowly rising up in their capital city. I think it has more to do with that than actual economics, unless you mean economics as in, oh, we're afraid our planes are going to get stolen on the tarmac by Maduro and sold off to the highest bidder as scrap to pay for his debts. Then another a Latin American airline, can't remember the name, they abandoned them too. Now Maduro's whining about fraud in the referendum in Bernie Sanders' utopian socialist land of Venezuela, where the government controls day-to-day life. It's funny that he's whining about fraud because it's commensurate with his approval ratings. Maduro, like all other tin horns, left or right, by the way, it doesn't matter if it's a capitalist regime, a socialist regime, interventionist regime, communism, it doesn't really matter. Tin horns, the strongman egotists, always lie about their support, and they pretend that like, oh, 99% of the population loves me. You know, Saddam Hussein used to do that too. I didn't support the invasion of Iraq, but let's face it, he was a tin horn dictator. Maduro's even worse, though. It was funny, yesterday a bunch of shootings happened. Several Colombians and I believe an American actually were killed. I have a feeling it was one of Maduro's strike groups trying to false flag the opposition, because this is another way to like rally his remaining fans around his cause, to keep them from splintering off and joining the opposition, to keep them from potentially helping oust him or going off to loot or something. His support is small and dwindling. It's sort of like Dilma. The only reason his is higher is because Dilma never said, oh, well, the U.S. is going to invade Brazil, and so we're going to put tanks in the streets, and the opposition are all traitors. They've been bought off. If Maduro actually had any evidence that a large part of the opposition within their legislature was involved with treason, if he had any legitimate reason to believe this, he already would have brought charges against them, had them arrested and held, and presented that evidence to the Venezuelans, because that'd be a magic bullet to his problems. If he could prove that that was the case, he could kill off the opposition completely without firing a shot. But he doesn't have any proof that that's the case because it's not true. That's why I say it's bullshit. If he were to arrest Capriles and a few others and say, oh, well, look at these documents, these emails seem pretty ironclad, then I'd say, oh, I guess the United States was trying to perform a coup in Venezuela. Oh, fuck, I guess that I was wrong. But that hasn't happened now, has it? Venezuelans are living in crushing poverty, but ultimately, I think, this is my opinion, the Venezuelan people and or the opposition and or elements of the military have to be the ones to solve this. If the United States were to throw its weight around in a socialist nation that is loosely allied with the Chinese here in the Americas, with that much oil, it would, number one, this is why Obama won't do it. Obama won't do it because it'll look like an oil grab. And I would say I'd be sympathetic towards those who would believe that. I wouldn't believe it myself, but I could understand why they'd believe it. Number two, you'd have constant fighting in the streets because Maduro has tens of thousands of socialist guerrilla fighters already trained, state-sponsored, and ready to go to utterly destabilize any further incarnation of government that doesn't have his blessing. Number three, the Venezuelan military may be shit compared to the U.S. military. You'd still take casualties. Unfortunately, most of them would be civilian. It'd be a PR nightmare. It'd be immoral. It wouldn't work ultimately. We would end up with a failed state here in the Americas. We've already got Haiti. We've got enough failure already in the American hemisphere. We don't need more. So the Venezuelan people, along with the opposition leaders, along with anyone favorable to them in the military, they need to handle this. If it comes down to the point where Maduro begins gassing people in the streets, then the Colombians or preferably the Brazilians, need to step in and do that. And then U.S. backing in the form of, yes, we approve of this, maybe would be okay. But the U.S. getting involved beyond that would be an absolute disaster. It would lend credence to Maduro's claims. He's got his tanks in the streets right now. Stupid as that may be, fearing an impending U.S. invasion and lying to his people saying the U.S. is trying to overthrow me because I'm socialistic and I have your best interests at heart, while he stuffs his face with caviar and expensive imported Russian goods. Stupid as though that may be, his claim gains validity in the eyes of the people of Venezuela if the United States does much of anything. We've already got a mild embargo on Venezuela, but really we don't need to do anything anyway. You can see, in the last week, 3 large foreign firms have pulled up their roots in Venezuela and left, leaving tens of thousands of jobs gone, leaving their economy bleeding even more than it was. Ultimately, Venezuela can choose central planning and socialism and state control all it wants, but foreign firms that help to prop up their ailing economy are still existing within a more or less free market. They're under no onus to continue doing business in Venezuela. Most of them, I predict, any that remain are going to leave very soon. Within the next couple of months, you'll see the mass exodus of smaller firms as well leaving Venezuela. They don't want to get their property nationalized. They don't have anyone really to sell it to. They might try to say to Maduro, hey, give us 10% of the value, we'll call it even, and just cut their losses and run. Whether he ponies up the money or not is a different story. But I mean, we're hearing about people who were middle class. These aren't not chronically impoverished individuals living in a favela. We're talking about people who were considered marginally wealthy. They had the dishwasher and the toaster and the iPhone, are now rooting through garbage cans just to not starve. This is the problem with socialism. This is what Sanders wants for the United States on a lesser degree. The problem being, if Sanders gets in, institutes 1 or 2 more social programs, there's just more dead weight on the economy that'll cost trillions of dollars. It won't work, by the way. And then in the future, the government will want more and more social spending until we become like Venezuela. We are slowly moving towards that kind of model. It's inescapable. What we need is a libertarian referendum, or at least a paleocon referendum, to do away with most of this, set us back 100 years in terms of socialism. We can manage that. We got the economic capability to do that. We're a diverse economy. If we were a monoculture like Venezuela, we would have already collapsed because of economic strain. Venezuela's problem is it is a monoculture. It was oil-based. Makes up 95% of their exports. Used to make up a lot less than that, but now every other sector of their economy is basically gone, let's face it. Half of them are just sitting around all day with nothing to do. I mean, how are you supposed to go to your job and do any work? You don't even have electricity or running water. How are you supposed to do that? Under those conditions, no business, whether it's state-run or whether it's free market, can actually survive. Now, in a free market system, profit would drive the expansion of infrastructure. Profit would have driven the expansion of oil rigs, the ability to pump it more cheaply, roads and trains for that oil infrastructure, branching out into other segments of economic growth. It would have been a godsend. They'd be far ahead of where they are now if they had embraced free market capitalism. And I mean a real free market. I don't mean interventionist bullshit like we have now here that kind of sort of works but not really, or like they have in Russia or China, a mixed model or something. I'm talking about an actual free market, something totally unbridled. There's a reason why socialist Brazil is seeing massive growth in their libertarian movement. They get a libertarian movement that's actually a step ahead of the one we have here in the United States. It's not just here. All over the Americas, it's growing. This sentiment that government has gotten in the way, whether it's a right-wing government or a left-wing government, it always seems to screw people. And people are realizing that, and they're embracing the concept, oh, maybe we should just limit government more. Maybe we should make it smaller and more compact and give it a few delegated duties that it can't go beyond, and maybe that can work. Well, it does work. We've done it before. We did it in the revolutionary period. It worked until we abandoned it, unfortunately, in favor of corporatism. Then all of our problems began. Now the military-industrial complex. But Venezuela's screwed. Maduro is also screwed. He probably will suffer a premature death. I doubt he will die of natural causes. I think somebody's going to shoot him or hang him from a tree or something. It's what he deserves. He's already killed tens of thousands of his own people by making an economic system in which they can't even get like latex gloves in their hospitals. Infant mortality is soaring. And as you see this, as you see more and more people lose their children, especially, or their wives, in the hospitals run by Maduro, that is when things will begin to break. It won't be, we're hungry. Hunger never caused that. So outright starvation, yes. People aren't quite yet to the point where they're actually starving to death, like Rome during the siege of the Visigoths or something. They're very hungry. There's certainly not enough to eat, and malnutrition is spreading, but they're not starving to death in the streets quite yet. When they begin starving to death in the streets, or when you see a few more cases of really crappy infant mortality situations, that's when it all falls in on itself. People will go apeshit, they will riot, they will burn Maduro out of his dwelling. Hopefully they torture him before he dies. It's what he deserves. That's about all. Peace out.